how's it going everyone? Welcome to the video. I've been sick for over 2 weeks, 3 weeks almost, and I've been coughing like crazy, so my throat is still a little bit itchy. My lungs are not what they were before I got sick, so I'm sometimes snatching a bit for air, but I want to do a review video for all the generic stuff that has been released in the new set. I'm going to go over all these cards and I will give a score to each of them, and that is of course starting with the legendary that we're getting, Balance of Justice. In my opinion, I really like this card because there is a lot of decks that like to draw multiple cards in a single turn, so especially against things like Fi, this is quite useful if Fi becomes a top tier deck in the current meta. So I think Balance of Justice is a really well designed card. It's still a 2-block, which is good for the head equipment slot in general, but being able to draw a card and being able to get that card advantage after you've already blocked with them, being able to decide when you want to do this is quite good. The clause that you can only activate is when your opponent has drawn 2 or more cards is a little bit annoying, but I think it's fine for the most part. Maybe this even being in the meta can force some decks to play a little bit less greedy and play a little bit more of a mid-range plan. I don't think it's better than the Crown of Providence that we already have though. For the most part, I think the Crown of Providence just nets you more value because you can play things like Command and Conquer, so I don't think it's like a top tier must-have generic legendary, but it's good. It's a very good card. I will definitely give this a 4 out of 5. A Glory Seeker, 3 cards, draw a card. I think this is just a worse version of the Hope Merchant suit, so this is a 0 out of 5 for me in terms of competitive viability. This one I quite like, that you can prevent 2 damage against arcane sources and stuff like that. However, it costs 3, which is a little bit awkward, and if it's not something arcane you're stopping, then the prevent 2 seems a bit awkward. You might as well just get a 2-block instead of this. I could see some niche uses with it, but for competitive play I don't really see this being anything good at all, so I'm going to give this a 1 out of 5. Then we have all the adversity pieces. They're all a 2-block, but I feel the this may only defend class when your opponent has already done a certain thing is a little bit awkward. Like this one can only defend if your opponent has drawn a card. This one only defends if your opponent has destroyed a Vigor token. Like, I think they are a little bit too restrictive, so I don't think they will see much play unless there's a specific deck that uses those things a lot, that it becomes like a generic 2-block that you can equip on demand. So I'm going to give all 4 of these like a 2 out of 5, but depending on how the meta shapes up, maybe these become important pieces after that. So Headliner, Helm, Stadium Centerpiece, Ticket Puncher, and Grandstand Leg Plate, as well as the Bloodied Oval. These are pieces that are going to be quite useful in the UPF because these can have more than 2 defense thanks to the ability that's attached to them. It says the defense is equal to the number of opposing heroes with a greater life total than you. So I do think for what they are designed for, they are designed well. So for UPF especially, I think these are probably like a 4 or 5 out of 5. And for competitive play in a 1 versus 1 scenario, I don't think these are going to be useful. Maybe the shield will see some play, because having a 1-block shield on demand as a generic slot is quite nice. So there might be some heroes like Ninja, for example, that just equip in a Kodachi and then bring a shield as well to have an additional block there. So maybe the shield is a 5 out of 5 and might see some niche play, but these other 2 pieces I don't think it's really going to see much play. Next up we have Nasty Surprise. When an opponent effect puts it into your graveyard from anywhere, create an Agility, Might and Vigor token. I like this to be able to counterplay things like Pummel and such, so I do think it's a very good card. And for the effect alone, it's a 0 cost, it's a 2 attack, it has a 3 block. This has everything it needs to be a good card. There's a blue so you can pitch it, so I would say this is a 5 out of 5 card just from the effect itself. However, from personal experience building decks like Ninja and Warrior, the blue slots are kind of tight and sometimes it's very hard to fit something in at all, so I'm not sure if this is going to be seeing much play, simply because we do have some better blues out there like Warmonger's Diplomacy that's already taking up 3 slots in most decks. So I like Nasty Surprise, I like the counterplay element against discard decks and stuff like that, or even like Command and Conquer, that you can put this into your arsenal, kind of like a trap for your opponent to attack into. But realistically speaking, I don't think I will be putting it in any of my decks, so as an effect I give it a 5 out of 5. In terms of actually playing it, I think I would give it a 3 out of 5 because I don't see myself including this in many decks at all. Pay up, so if defending hero controls a gold, like nowadays, because even equipment pieces and guardian such are gold, I think this one can be quite relevant. So it's a 6 attack. It usually will have overpower against the heroes that you will be bringing this into, and that says when this hits a hero gain control of a gold token they control. If they don't, deal 1 damage to them. So in a way it's like a 7 attack in a generic slot. I quite like it. I do think like the requiring a gold token is a little bit niche, so I do think this is probably like a 3 out of 5. Not something that I will probably be playing, but it's a 6 attack, which is quite good against things like Dromite to be able to pop Phantasm, so I could see this seeing some play in some decks, so I will give it a 3 out of 5 though. It's not like super overbearingly overpowered, but it's a nice card to have. Ripple Away, this one instant, discard this. If an attack action card would create 1 or more tokens this turn, instead it creates that many -1 of each of those tokens. I think this can be quite good against decks like Viceroy if they become popular again. The way it's worded, I'm not sure. If you discard this, does this effect stay active until the end of turn for every single action card they play that would create a token? If so, then this is definitely a 5 out of 5 top tier staple that you probably want to get a hold of in case of those big decks becoming popular again. Or even against Dromai, if Dromai creates a Binder of Ash, you can probably use this to stop them from generating that Ash, or if they want to generate Ash Wings, because those are tokens as well, right? You can stop them from creating as many Ash Wings. So I do think Ripple Away is a very good card, a 5 out of 5. This is definitely a staple you should be picking up because there will be metas where this is going to be quite relevant. So get a 3 of this card. I think this is a really good one. Standing Order, so when this attacks a defense, you may put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck. If you do, this gets +2 attack and +2 defense, so this is quite good against things like Command and Conquer. You just put it down, you cycle your card away, you block most of the damage, just take 1 and you don't lose your card, so I quite like that. But also on demand you can play it as an aggro card that you can just come in with a 6 attack if you're under the effect of something like a Red in the Ledger, for example. So I do think this is a very good card. I'm again not sure if there's enough deck space in most decks to be able to include a playset of this, but I could see some decks playing it. I will give this a 5 out of 5. I really like this one. I think it's a good card. Tenacity, it's a 2 attack, so this is fetchable with the Mass of the Pouncing Lynx. It's a 3 block, it's a 0 cost attack, and this says when this attacks it gets +X power, where X is the number of defending cards on the combat chain. I can see this being a very good card in things like Fi, so having this as a 1 of 5 to be able to fetch off your Mass of the Pouncing Lynx in case your opponent has blocked a little bit too much might be very valuable, because this might even be stronger than a Salt Wound if you didn't get that many hits in because they keep on. So I think it's a 5 out of 5 cards, but you probably want to be running only 1 of them in your deck, so just get 1 copy of it and you should be pretty much good to go. Next up, Seductive Secrets. Look at target hero's hand and the top card of the deck, so getting information is quite valuable in general. And that says if this was played from Arsenal, draw a card. It's an instant, so I guess for the most part you want to be getting this into your arsenal and then drawing that card and getting a bunch of information. It doesn't have a block value though, which is a bit awkward, so I personally am not really a fan of including cards in your deck that don't have a block value, that don't really have a good reason to being there, and I think scouting for information is probably not enough to be including this in your deck for the most part. So I think effect wise is a really cool card. I would give this a 4 out of 5 for sure. However, I don't think I will be putting it in any of my decks, simply because it again takes up deck space and doesn't really do anything on its own, and that doesn't block on its own, so it can lose you games in the very late game. So those are all things that I'm not really a fan of, so I think it's a 4 out of 5 for the effect, but I will not be playing it myself. So down but not out. When this attacks a hero, if you have less life and control fewer equipment and tokens than the opponent, it gets +3 and overpower, so this is basically an 8 attack in the right situation, right? So an 8 for 3, that's 4 value per card if you consider this card plus the one you are pitching, so that's quite good in general. Overpower is good, it makes it harder for the opponent to block, and it says when this hits create an agility, might and vigor token. Really good card. I'm actually surprised this is not a majestic. I'm happy it's not a majestic because that means that this will be available for budget players as well. It has a 3 block too. This is a definite a 5 out of 5, maybe even a 6 out of 5 top tier card in my opinion. This is going to see play in a lot of decks and I think it's very good in general. Wage gold, what does this one do? A 7 attack, cost 3, so 3.5 value from just that. Universal, what is it in any zone? It is the same class as your hero, so okay, that's also very good. And then when this attacks hero, you may wager a gold token. Very solid card, 5 out of 5, definitely worth including in your deck. Reinforced line we already know, Adrenaline Rush we also know, we have those from previous sets. And then we have this one, Performance Bonus, so a 0 cost is a 3 attack, 0 for 3 is not great, but says when this hits create a gold token. It's a 2 block, if this was played from Arsenal it gets go again. I think it does too little for the effect. I mean, getting the gold token is cool and being able to manipulate it to get go again is cool, but I think we have better cards than that, so I do think Performance Bonus, I would give it a 3 out of 5. I'm not gonna play it, I don't think it's good enough. Rally the rear card and trade and knockouts we already know. Lunging Press is also a card we already know. And I do apologize, there's a truck passing by outside, so there's a little bit of a hum in the background. But what is this? So Money Where Your Mouth Is. It's a 1 cost, it's a generic action. Your next attack this turn gains +3. 3 for 1 is okay-ish for a buff. And it says when this attacks area you may wager a gold token with them. It's only a 2 block though, like most generic actions of this nature are. I don't think it's good enough to see play, honestly. I like that you can wager gold token, and maybe in things like Olympia or Kasai where the gold tokens become quite valuable, this may see some significant play. I will give it a 4 out of 5 though. I could see it see play in a bunch of decks, but I'm not sure if it's good enough as the value that it's giving right here. Like, yeah, +3 power for 1 is quite costly in general. The cool thing is that it says your next attack though, so you can give +3 to your weapon, so I could see this have some play in things like a X Olympia build, for example, where you play this and you tag it with your X after that and then hold 2 resources to be able to put some more reactions on top of that to make sure that you get the gold token. Yeah, maybe in those kind of decks it could be quite good. Maybe I underestimated. It's like a 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5 card. Quite like it, and let's move on. So starting stake, if you control no gold tokens, create a gold token. It's good, it's a 3 block, it's good in the very early game, it's still a yellow so you can pitch it in the late game. If you are forced to go first, you can play this, generate some gold tokens if you don't have gold tokens already. I quite like it, definitely a 5 out of 5, probably just a 1-off including your deck. If you draw into it, if you're lucky, then it's good, but most other case scenarios you probably just want to block it or pitch it away or something like that. So strength, when this defense clash with the attacking hero, the winner creates a gold token. It's a block card, so a 4 block in general is quite good already. I think it's nice that we are seeing more and more block cards that can go into multiple decks, because then we can deal easier with things like dominate effects with crush effects, so we can block with this from hand and then block with a defense reaction from Arsenal to be able to get some value. The clash itself, I think the heroes that you want to be blocking with this card against, they probably have very high attacks in the deck in general, so I'm not sure if this is beneficial for us, because more often than not we might be giving our opponent a gold token when we don't really want to give them a gold token. So I could see some play in a Brute deck or maybe a Guardian deck, but all other decks it might be too much of a negative downside to give your opponent that much agency with gold token generations. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I do like that we get another generic block, and that's a 4 block, but I don't think it's good enough to play in general. So other than that, we just have tokens here, and then we're already in the new hero support for all the other heroes. I'll go over the heroes that I do play quickly here before I end the video. So we have a Graven Call, once put in action 2, so very in line with all the other assassin weapons. Piercing 1, also in line with a lot of the other assassin weapons out there. It says instant speed, destroy 2 silver you control, equip this with a +1 counter, activate this ability only while this is in graveyard. Okay, so if you throw in this with a flick knife, for example, you can bring it back for 2 silver and it becomes stronger when you do bring it back. Quite like this, a 2 attack for 2 is quite decent, but it doesn't really have an on-hit effect by itself, so I'm not sure. I don't think it will see play in most decks. I think having the other assassin weapons that have an on-hit effect is just better in general. I will give it a 3 out of 5 though. So coercive tendency, it's a 0 cost, it's a reaction, a 3 block. 3 blocks are good in general. Arachne specialization, look at the top 3 cards of defending hero's deck, put them back in any order, then banish the top card of the deck. So if you have a contract active already, you're kind of making sure that you can trigger your contract. And then it says if you complete a contract this way, okay, so it does take that into consideration. Your assassin attack gets go again. So this is basically like a glint to Quicksilver for Assassin, then you are almost guaranteed to give go again to whatever you're attacking in with. You're guaranteed to trigger a contract to get some silver to get some of your equipment back. This is a really good card. This is definitely a 5 out of 5 in my opinion, and just a straight up 3 of 3 staple in Assassin. Will it make Arachne viable? I'm not sure if it's gonna make Arachne viable, but Arachne is accumulating more and more tools recently that it's kind of getting close to being a good deck, and I think it just needs a little bit more support and it's probably gonna be one of those top tier contenders in the assassin slot. So I do think it's a good card, but we need to wait and see a little bit. Ancestral Harmony, well, it's a blue, like in Ninja especially, you have so little blue space slots. Like maybe you followed some of my Ninja content in the past, or you're one of my patrons, and one of the cards that I really like is Mind State of Tiger, and because there's so limited blue slots in the deck, I had to take the Mind State of Tigers out. I think this will fall into a similar category, that there is just so much stuff that needs to go into the blue slot in Ninja especially, that it's sometimes hard to fit something of this in, but let's see. So it's a 3 block that's good as a 0 cost. That means that your Kodachis can go again. Your attacks with combo get +1 this turn, so it's kind of like an Art of War effect or like an Uprising effect. I think Uprising is more in line with what this wants to do. And then it says banish the top card of your deck. If it has combo, you may play it this turn. In Katsu, you mostly play combo cards, so most of the time it's going to be hitting something regardless. The problem is that you don't really know what combo card you're going to be hitting. So it might be a combo card you already have in your hand, or a combo card that you don't really have the cards for to start a combo with. So I quite like it because it gives you the card advantage, and most of the time you're going to be getting that card. And if it doesn't give you the card advantage, usually you still have like 2 or 3 combo cards that turn anyway, so you're gonna get the value out of this back regardless. So I think it's a 5 out of 5, but again, very hard to fit into a deck because it's a blue and we don't have that many blue slots available. Evo Magneto, if you have a base armor equipped transformer, so it's like a generic Evo equipment. It's not a base equipment, so you cannot continue piling stuff on top of this. It says when it's defense, you may destroy a card under it. If you do, gain control of target item that costs 0 or 1 control by attacking hero. Really good against the control dash matchup, because you can steal the induction chambers. I think the induction chambers cost 0, right? Pretty sure they cost 0, so you could steal those. I think this is a very good card. I think this is a 5 out of 5 sideboard tech card, and I could even see it having some play against all of the other stuff that we're getting now, because we have a lot of heroes that care about gold tokens now, so I could see play against a lot of these gold generating heroes where you just steal their gold piece, because it's an item, right? I'm pretty sure it's still an item. Let's see. Gold, yeah, gold is an item, so you can steal those. I quite like it, I really like it. And I do think these count as a 0 cost as well, because they don't have a cost associated to it. So Eva Magneto, quite a good card. Judge, Jury, Executioner, so Legendary Azelia specialization, you may only have 1 of these in your deck. And it says if this has an aim counter, it gets when this hits a hero, they discard all but 1 card from the hand. Kind of like a red in the ledger, because you are limiting your opponent to just 1 card in the hand, so they might only be able to play whatever's in the arsenal. But I do think it's it's easy to play around, right? For example, if you put something like a Command and Conquer in your arsenal and you do get hit by the Judge, Jury, Executioner, and yeah, it's sad that you lose your whole hand, but you can block with one card from your hand, lose 2 cards, so they get a lot of value from it, but then you can just follow your turn up by attacking with whatever is in your arsenal and still get a bunch of momentum back from that. So I think it's a very good card. It's definitely something that's going to make Azelia better, and definitely a 5 out of 5 staple that every Azelia deck wants to play. But having to require an aim counter to have the effect active is quite awkward. At least for Azelia decks, it's a bit awkward to put aim counters onto stuff. Maybe a 5 out of 5 is a bit too much even. Maybe I should give this a 4 out of 5, to be honest. It's good, but it's not like overbearingly good. So there you go. That's my opinion about that. Reel in. So it has an X cost. Look at the top X cost plus 1 of your deck. Choose up to 4 traps, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle. Really good at Riptide, I would imagine, if you have a very trap-centric Riptide deck. I think most of the time you're going to be able to find at least 2 of them, so if you go for Axis 3 and you dig into your top 4 cards, you can probably find 2 traps, put them into your hand, and get a +1 value from this. It also has a reload, so getting an arrow into your arsenal is also quite good in general, or even if you want to put a trap into your arsenal, because this is an instant after all, so you could potentially play this during your first turn, and then already start loading up your arsenal with something. So I do quite like it. I think it's a very good card, definitely a 5 out of 5 for the Riptide decks. So Seductive Alexia, quite a steep cost, but let's see what it does. So this costs 1 less to play for each rune chant you control. Okay, then the XX cost doesn't really matter as much. And then say search your deck for a Runeblade aura with cost X or less, put it in the arena and then shuffle. If X is 2 or more, this gets go again. Quite a good card. I don't think Runeblade plays all that many auras, but you do have that, I forgot the name of it, the aura that generates a rune chant at the beginning of your turn, so that one is definitely something that they could play, especially in things like Viscerai. So I think it will definitely see a bit of play. It's not overpowered, I think. Usually when you have XX cost things like this, it can sometimes get a little bit dangerous, that people can do something really overpowered with it, but ultimately you're only allowed to put 1 aura from your deck onto the field. You need to be pitching for it. It gives you more agency as Runeblade, but that's about it. I will give this a 3 out of 5. I think it's decent, but not overpowered. So Aether Arc, 0 cost, a 3 block. 3 blocks are good, and it says deal 1 arcane damage to each opposing hero, create a ponder token for each hero dealt damage this way. I'm not sure. Like, the ponder tokens, they are nice, but if you have a bunch of ponder tokens in UPF, for example, the only thing you're going to really be doing with it is sculpting how you're going to be putting stuff in your arsenal. But then again, like, the ponder tokens are a triggered effect, right? So maybe since you have a bunch of ponder tokens, like one of them triggers, you draw a card, the next one triggers, and you can probably respond to that triggers with an instant, right? So you might be able to pull off some Kano shenanigans in the right setting where you use your ponder triggers to continue playing cards. If it works like that, please quote me on that, then I think this is definitely a 5 out of 5 card, especially since this is a blue as well that you can very easily pitch to Kano. But if it doesn't work like that, then maybe not so. In a competitive setting, since you only really have one opponent, I don't think it's gonna do much. You're just going to be dealing 1 damage and creating a ponder token. I don't think that's enough. I think when Kano wants to combo off, he wants to do it all in 1 turn, right, and not start setting up for a future turn again. So in a competitive setting, I would probably give this a 3 out of 5. In UPF, however, it seems rather overpowered, and I want to give that a 5 out of 5. So Dissolve Reality, 0 cost, so it's easy to play. Illusion action, 3 block. Each hero puts all cards in the arsenal on the bottom of the deck and creates a ponder token. Yeah, I guess. I'm not sure about this one. I mean, it helps you to fix your arsenal, but then you lose this, and I don't think that's kind of good. I'm not sure. I don't think I like the card. I don't think it's gonna see a ton of play. I like what it wants to do, but I can't really think of a scenario where this could be relevant. Maybe if you're afraid that your opponent has a defense reaction in the arsenal and you want to be coming in with something with Dominate, but then Illusionist doesn't have that many Dominate things. Maybe you could see play in Prism with, what's it called again, the Herald of Erudition, to make sure that the on-hit gets to stick. maybe that's the play, but I'm not really seeing it. I want to give it a 2 out of 5, but maybe it's just because I don't play Illusionist and I'm not really sure what to do with it. And then we have Luminaris Angel's Glove. There's a yellow card in your pitch zone. The first attack action card with Herald in its name. You play each turn, and your first angel attack each turn gets go again. Very good, kind of like the old Luminaris, but it's taking away the viability of spamming aura, so I quite like this. This is probably going to make the new Prism quite viable and making Herald spam a little bit more of a thing that we're going to be seeing going forward. Definitely a 5 out of 5 weapon. It's very good. Sometimes a bit scared of like free go against like this because they can be relatively meta warping, but I think for the Prism mains out there that wanted a new weapon, this is definitely something very good to have, and I think it's going to see a lot of play. I think Prism is way overdue to make her comeback into the meta anyway. So yeah, I think that's all for me for today. I will do a review of all the warrior cards sometime soon as well, and keep an eye out for that. Also, for everyone that is still supporting me over on Patreon, thank you very much. I'm moving to a new place at the moment, and then I got sick like 2 weeks ago, so things haven't really been too great in the content creator sense, because I keep on either not having time to create content or being too sick to create content. So I do appreciate everyone that is still supporting me in this troubling time. Hopefully by next month I can go back to regular content creation, and I should be like next month we've moved, and then once the baby is born I need to see how I'm going to be balancing things from there. But I will keep you all up to date, especially over on Twitter, and yeah, that's pretty much all for me. Thank you for watching again, and we'll see you all soon with another Flesh and Blood video. Take care.